Now in business news, in 16,856 transactions this week, investors on the Nigerian stock market spent 15.62 billion naira on 3.920 billion shares. This was more than the 10.96 billion naira that investors spent last week on 3.920 billion shares through 16,856 transactions. Now, due to the al-Fitri holiday last week, the Nigerian capital market was open for 4 days. The Conglomerates Industry was the best performing sector this week, with shareholders trading 1.797 billion shares worth 2.49 billion naira in 931 deals. The financial services industry followed after investors traded 590.745 million shares, valued at 5.61 billion naira in 7,869 deals. In the consumer goods industry, 313.737 million shares worth 1.213 billion naira exchange hands in 1,340 deals. Now, joining me on the news is Azeez Lawal, Managing Director, Trust Bank Assets Management Limited. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Lawal.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, investors gained 15.62 billion naira on Thursday. What's your assessment of the 4 days of trading due to the Eid al-Fitr holiday last week?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for that recap. Like you mentioned, that the activities was quite robust. So the market last week, despite the 4 days of trading, we saw active participation. On Monday, we saw significant offer for the telecom giant MTN, and that sank the broad-based index by over 151 basis points. Although we still saw moderate buys and activities the same day on Monday, particularly bellwether banking stocks. However, subsequent trading sessions were dominated by the bulls as market players sought to take bargain position on tickers like NGX Group and FBNH. Notably, throughout the week, Transcorp maintained the top position on the gainers chart and gained 45% for the entire week. At the tail end of the week, on Thursday, we saw impressive earnings and dividend announcement made by Access Bank, which lured significant bids from retail and portfolio investors. So, I mean, generally, though the market declined week on week about 1.06%, but in the coming week, we expect that the market sentiment will tilt towards the bulls on the back of investor sentiment in banking tickers. Thank you.
You mentioned Transcorp, leading the top gainers chart. Can you share with us, what might be responsible for the renewed interest in that particular stock? And of course, do you think the audience maybe should take advantage of that?
Yeah, thank you. It's an interesting one, right? We hear about Elon Musk globally and the impact he makes when he gets to when he enters into companies. That's what we've seen with Transcorp in the last 2 weeks. The moment Otedola announced his interest, in fact, that he had bought over 5% interest in Transcorp. Investors followed suit immediately because from his history in the capital market, in the equity market, once Otedola goes into a company, it starts to gain. And that's what we've seen in the last 2 weeks. Transcorp last week alone did over 40%, and in the last 2 weeks has done over 70%. We expect that trend to continue. So for investors who believe in the most of Otedola, it's a good time to still come into Transcorp. We still believe that there's a leg room for gains, but you have to talk to your broker before you take that decision. Thank you.
All right, and final question. I want to talk about the banking sector, and which sectors you feel have been mostly disappointing. A couple of years ago, many people would maybe have looked at the banking sector as a place to buy stocks in, but it doesn't seem that way currently.
Yeah, historically, we can say that, when we look at prices pre-COVID, where banking stocks were trading as much as like a GTB, for example, was trading as high as 14 naira, but in recent times it's more of between 20, 30 naira, 20, 25 naira. But regardless, their performance is particularly fundamentals are still impressive. So it's though they have not touched the levels that we still expect this year. but not necessarily disappointing, but rather they still present opportunities for investors who seek to grow their wealth in the equity markets. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Azeez, thank you very much for your time. I'm hoping that more Nigerians, of course, gain interest in buying stocks and learning more about, how they can invest in the, Nigerian stock exchange and some of all of that. Thanks for your time. We'll speak with you again.
We hope so too.